Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live. Thank you for being flexible with me today and jumping over to 2 p.m. Eastern time. I meant to give you a little bit more of a heads up, but my plans for today got away from me. I had lunch with some of my husband's family. They were in town to see a matinee show, and so I grabbed lunch with them. And the irony is I didn't want to have to rush back, but I still ended up rushing back. The trains were a mess, and I literally just sprinted into my house and sat down, and here we are. I'm ready to chat. I wish I was drinking iced coffee, but it is just I don't know. I made the hot, and now I'm sitting here and kind of hot and wishing that my coffee was iced. But I'm excited to hang out today and answer all of your questions. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Laken. I go live every Wednesday, typically at 1 p.m. Eastern, to answer any questions that you have about goals, planning, life, whatever it is that you're struggling with. Let's kick it off with my first question that I always ask you, which is, what are you drinking while we are hanging out today? So if you are here live, I want you to let us know in the chat what you're sipping on. It is called Lattes with Laken, but depending on where you're at in the world, you may not be having a latte right now. I just have coffee, like plain coffee from Four Sigmatic, which is my favorite coffee. And then I also have my water handy as well. And if you are watching the replay, I would also love to hear in the comments what you are drinking while you're watching or what you're doing while you're watching. I know a lot of you tend to multitask while you listen to the replays. I try to be good about answering questions, repeating them. That way you can always just watch it without having to actually listen. All right, we have water. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're at in the world. Water, just lots of water today. Lots of people being hydrated. Linda, water, but coffee next. Also, like some of these amazing people have already done in the comments, if your YouTube handle or your Facebook name is not the name that you typically go by, I would love for you to include your name in the comment. That way I can address you by your name. I would really appreciate that. This name, I don't want to mess it up, but that looks like a beautiful name. I would love for you to share how I would pronounce that. I would love that. All right, lots of water, coffee and water. All right. Well, we all got our water and our coffee, and this always amazes me how the color changes when you put something else in the screen. I know a photographer explained it to me once, but it still blows my mind every time I look at it. Let's get to questions. What questions do you have? What is on your mind today? What are you struggling with? We are coming to the end of the first half of the year, which is bananas. So what questions do you have? Macion. That is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for sharing that pronunciation with us. Macion. I love it. I love it. It's going to be too hot. It smells good. No, it's perfect. Okay. Perfectly temperatured coffee. What questions do you have? What are you struggling with right now as it relates to your goals, your planners, or just what is on your mind right now? What are you guys, what are you up to? What goals are you working on? Jennifer, this is a good question. Will your routines change much with the change of season? So I actually just posted a video last Monday that was about setting goals for different seasons. And what I talk about in that video is that season is completely arbitrary, right? The original definition of seasons was grouping the weather together. But depending on where you live, it doesn't actually ever really line up. And so seasons can mean lots of different things for different people. And the purpose of the video that I posted was to help you change your goals when you have a change in season. It can be actually the weather seasons, or it could just be the season for you is changing. So Jennifer, I'm assuming you mean as we go into summer. For me, nothing really is changing in terms of summer. Since I don't have kids and I don't work in any sort of education, I just realized there's something on my teeth, y'all. It's good because I just literally went to lunch and then ran here and got live. There's nothing really about that's changing for me. Dance does start back up again. That's why I grabbed my dance mug when I was in a rush. Dance started back up, will start back up again the week after the 4th of July. So that's kind of a little bit of a shift in season for me. Although this down season didn't really feel like much of a down season, but I won't really be changing up my routines all that much given the summer, if that's what you're asking. Struggling with setting goals for spiritual study. So I think as with any goal, right, the first step is going to be for you to just brainstorm what are all the different action steps that you could possibly take. What are all the different things you could do related to spiritual study? And you're probably going to know better than I would to brainstorm ideas. I did a series of videos a couple weeks ago that was goal ideas like action step ideas for different goal categories. This is not a goal category that I have a lot of experience with where I could give you some suggestions, but that is where I would start. Is step one, first off, I would check out those videos because at the end of each video, I did give a general tip to creating more goal ideas. So you could apply those tips to this particular goal. But step one really is just going to be to brainstorm what are all the things you could possibly do? What are all the steps you could possibly take? Then step two is going to be to break those down. How do I break them down into smaller steps? Steps that I could actually schedule into my planner, right? So one thing that pops into my head potentially would be like reading the entire Bible. There's a lot of people that set that goal to do that, like set a goal to do that over the course of a year. And by the way, even though it's the middle of the year, if you want to set the goal to do it now through next June 22nd, like even though we don't need to wait for January to do year-long challenges like that. So let's say that was your goal. So right, you're going to have to read a certain amount every day, or not necessarily every day, a certain amount on a regular basis in order to build your way up to that ultimate goal. So you're going to need to break it down into steps that you can then actually schedule. And I think the thing to remember, especially with a goal like this, is you can change your mind. You can change your mind what time of day, how much time you're spending, what works best for you. It's not necessarily what's going to work best for other people. And you might, as you start taking action, you're going to learn what is going to work best for you in different scenarios. So I would recommend with this type of goal, just getting started. So picking what is one step you could start with. How much time do you want to spend on that per day? Where do you want to spend that time? Like what part of your day do you want to do that? And then just get started. And I do think that once you start taking action, it will be easier for you to come up with other ideas for you to continue on this goal. You completed your digital declutter goal. That is amazing. I am just thinking about getting started on that one. So super exciting. Congrats. Thanks for sharing your win. Joanna, oh my gosh, you are here and you tested positive the day after you arrived. So you just are stuck in your hotel room. I am so sorry to hear that. I hope that you are feeling okay and you're not having any extreme symptoms, but that is such a bummer that you are over here, but you are stuck in your hotel room. I'm so sorry. Barbara, just retired after 23 years of teaching. That is amazing. Congratulations and thank you. That's amazing. So mid-year goal changes. You did watch the video about the annual goal review. I don't know if you're asking for some additional tips or thoughts or advice on this. I do think a lot of what I talked about, both in the seasons video and in the video that went up this Monday about doing a goal refresh. I think the other thing to remember here is this is a massively different set of like scheduling in terms of life. Like we always have shifts in life things that happen, right? Like we get married, we move, whatever. This is one of those things that like your day-to-day schedule is drastically different than it was before. So give yourself that space to take your time and figuring out what works for you, right? Things that you might have done while you were working as a teacher, you may decide that's not what you want to do, right? Like maybe you didn't get up and do a big morning routine because you had to get up so early and get to school. And maybe now you want to do a big morning routine, or maybe vice versa. You don't actually, you still want to have like a nice slow morning, you want to have a nice slow morning instead of doing a bunch of things in the morning. Maybe you're going to shift your routines to the middle of the day or the afternoon. But the point I'm trying to make is that you don't have to have that all figured out right this second. This is a massive shift, a massive change. It's going to take time for you to really get used to the new setup of your life. And so don't put a bunch of pressure on yourself to figure it all out right this second. Ashley, my goals are like the duck memes. I don't have ducks. I have squirrels and they're at a rave. If you don't know what she's talking about, there's a meme about like having your ducks in a row and it's like, I don't have ducks. I have squirrels and they're at a rave. You're struggling with goals right now for sure. I mean, this is the perfect time to get it back in order, right? We are halfway through the year. Take the time to think about like, okay, my goals are squirrels and they're at a rave. So they're all over the place. I probably have too many of them. Frankly, that is usually what happens. If we don't feel like our goals are ducks in a row, we probably have more than we can really take on at this point. So I would recommend, what can you cut? Like, what are the goals that you can cut from your list right now? And I'm not saying forever, and maybe not even for the rest of the year, but what can you cut right now? Like, what can you really focus on? That way you can feel like you're getting your goals in a row to continue with your duck meme, and then start to layer some more on, start to add in some more ducks, but get a hold of what you want to work on now. I love recommending it. I'm not good at executing this on myself, but I know that other people have found success with it, which is focusing on one goal, picking one goal. Like even if it's just for the month of July and you pick this one goal and that is your focus, I know that people have had success with that. Joanna, you're doing fine. Absolutely gutted, but working on your book, which makes me so happy. I love that. Fun question. What dance styles are you going to do this season? I have not made up my decision. I've not made up my mind on that. If you don't know what she's referring to, I am a member of a dance company, but you do audition for all the dances for the following season. And they just released all of the choreographers and their dance styles earlier this week. There's a lot of great options. It also depends on the schedule. I think I mentioned this, but like last season, if I could have picked my top 4 dances, I would have gone 4 days. I'm not going to Queens 4 days a week to rehearse for 1 hour. In an ideal world, I'm not going more than 2 days. So that also limits me in figuring out what I want to do. So I have a lot of options. It also is my last season in terms of dance, and that makes me very sad and also makes it a lot harder. I know, like if I looked at that schedule and decided what I would pick, knowing it wasn't my last season, it would be very different than what I feel like I want to pick or need to pick, given that it's my last season. So to be determined. I'm very torn, y'all. Barbara, I'm glad that helped you hearing that. It is hard because it's the end of the quarter. It's mid-year goals. It feels like it's a great time for you to set brand new goals. But you know what? Maybe just your new goal is like, figure it out. Figure out this new season of life that you're in. Oh, this is an interesting question. Do you have thoughts, tips on summer fun on an extreme budget? We had some unexpected home repairs and that took our summer fun budget away. Still trying to do a few things with my kids. I don't know that I'm the best person to answer this question because as somebody who lives in a city, my recommendations for summer fun is not something I can actually do on a regular basis. Like I remember things when I was a kid, some of my favorite things were like running in the sprinklers in the yard. Like that was the best. And there were just things that I couldn't do given that, I can't do now, not that I want to necessarily run in sprinklers in a yard, but like, it's hard to make recommendations of what I would do in the city versus where you likely live with your family. I'm trying to rack my brain for people that I follow on social media, YouTube, Instagram, that have kids and like talk about things on a budget, because I do feel like there are people out there that probably have these kinds of awesome recommendations that I just don't have. I'm sure Kendra from the Lazy Genius has something going on over there. But I don't know that I'm the best person for these kinds of things. I think one of the things, you know what, I do have one random idea, and I actually got this. One of the rare beauty YouTubers that I follow is Emily Noel. And she talked about how her and her family just did like a fun at-home movie night where everybody in the family put a movie on a piece of paper and they put it into a bowl, and then they drew one of the movies and they got like popcorn and movie style candy and did like an at-home movie night. And her kind of summary was like, it can be fun and exciting just to do things like that. Like it doesn't have to be, these big extravagant type things to still be fun and memorable for everybody involved. So that could be something fun that you could try. And then I think just like maybe find somebody who this is what they talk about, because I'm sure that exists. I just can't think of who it is. I truthfully don't follow a ton of moms. Because I got into this phase, this is a total tangent. I got into this phase where I would watch or consume any piece of content that could ever possibly at some point in my life relate to me. And I would be like, well, I need to know that someday. Oh, this video about like moms of teenagers. Well, like I should probably watch that. So I like know it someday because I'm going to remember that in 20 years. So maybe not 20 years, but you know what I mean? So I kind of stopped consuming a lot of things that didn't apply to me now, and really tried to only watch, or consume content that is something I could implement right now. So I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but I'll keep an eye out for you. Ashley, thank you. Congrats on your news. I'm excited for you. If you don't know what she's talking about, either you didn't see it on Instagram or you don't follow me on Instagram. And I haven't actually said it in a video anywhere, but we have officially announced that we are moving to Chicago in February. So our lease in New York is up March 1st. And that is going to be the end of our time in New York City, which is very, 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 very bittersweet. And I probably can't talk about it that much more without getting emotional. So I'm going to not. Jess, good question. Any tips on how to plan an AM and or PM routine when taking into consideration a partner who has a different rhythm? I definitely would say the number one thing is going to be communication. Like you're going like not just set your alarm for 6 a.m. and not have them wake up. I will say when we first started living together, Sam was working a completely different job and he didn't have to be at work until 10. As a not morning person, that meant he wanted to get up at like 9 and like roll out of bed and shower and go to work. And so when I wanted to wake up at 6 and do a million different things, and our old apartment, if you don't remember, you weren't here, it was just a 1-bedroom. And the door between the 1-bedroom and the living room was why can't I think of the word? It had glass in the middle of it. French doors. It was French doors. And so at first, even though I would shut the door, if I turned on the light would go into the bedroom. Now that was an easy fix. We just got curtains for the French doors, but it was just little things like me getting up at 6 and him being like, I don't like when you turn the light on because then it wakes me up. Reasonable. We got curtains, fix that. So talking with that partner about what they want, what their rhythms are, and how you can have them overlap, right? So it's like in our apartment, if you're going to do the Peloton before the other person is awake, you use the headphones, right? Like just things like that, and like talking about what that looks like. And then there is likely some sort of compromise that needs to happen, that you might not get to do your perfect, like exactly what you want routine, so that it doesn't disrupt your other partner. But just talking about it and being willing to compromise. And then when you are figuring out potential compromises, what is the most important thing to you? Like what about your routines is the non-negotiable, and what are the things that you could be flexible about if you had to be? Jesse, I just added a role at work, committee chairman, congrats. And now I feel the need to learn everything. What are some ideas, steps when tackling an unplanned new goal to stop the overwhelmed feeling? You're not alone. We all feel this way when there's a new goal, planned or unplanned. It can still feel incredibly overwhelming, especially when you likely have other goals that you want to work on. The best way to get over the overwhelm is to break it down into smaller pieces that you can actually put in your calendar, right? Like learn everything is a really big statement. Okay, what is everything? What are the things you actually need to learn? Let's list those out. How are we going to learn those things? Is it a course you're going to take? Is it a book you're going to read? How are you going to learn those things? Great. When am I going to schedule time to work on those things? If it's a course, am I going to do one module a week to learn on that, right? Like breaking it down into these smaller steps. And then the other key piece of getting over the overwhelmed is just to get started. We are so good at building things up in our head to be way bigger than they actually are. We think things are going to take way longer than they do. We think things are going to be so much harder. Sometimes things are hard, and sometimes things do take a long time. But I would say for me, at least more often than not, I way built it up in my head. And once I actually get started on that thing, it is way more manageable and feasible for me to get through. So the key there is that we have to start. We have to start taking action. And then we learn like, oh, I was very much overestimating how hard that was going to be, how long it was going to take. And so that overwhelm was not really necessary. Okay, I can do this once you start taking action. So first thing, get it all out of your head, learn everything and break it all down. And then start small and start taking action. Oh, you're near Lake Michigan. I love that. So you'll do some lake days, but simple things make the best memories. A surprise movie night, so fun. Even little things. I'm trying to think, I don't know how old your kids are, but I'm trying to think back to things I loved as a little kid or things my brothers loved. One of the things my little brothers always loved, and I would do this when I was like babysitting them, especially when I was in college. I would come home for the weekend and I would babysit my brothers while my parents had date night. And we would have like a camp out slumber party in the living room. Like it was the best thing for them not to have to go sleep in their own beds. And so we would like build a pillow fort and like do the whole thing in the living room and like camp out in the living room. And it was just so much fun. So little things like that, I feel like add up. Hiya, so good to see you. I had a very hectic first half of the year. I got a very big job in February, and all my goals were literally put to the side. And then I was let go 5 days ago. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry to hear about that. I don't know if that's bad news or good news, or what you're feeling about that scenario. Um, Regardless, whatever you need in terms of time to uh, process that, like step one is that, right? Processing that before you jump back into what the other goals are, right? So, like, whatever you need to work through that, take that for yourself. And then when you're ready to jump back into your goals with anything, you start with one. Pick one goal, pick one thing that you're going to focus on, and start with that. Start building that momentum, which comes from action. When big things like this happen, being let go from a job, like all kinds of things. I just had this conversation with somebody about losing a loved one. These big things happen. We need to take the time that we need to process and essentially grieve what we expected that was going to happen, and it didn't, right? So take the time that you need, and then instead of jumping back in with all of the things, because that is overwhelming, we're going to start small, because you're never going to have the motivation. The motivation is likely never going to be there. It's going to have to come from momentum, which is going to come from action. You all have heard me say this a billion times. Action breeds momentum, which breeds motivation. You're not just going to pull motivation out of thin air. And so in order to take action, when you haven't been working on your goals for a month and you had a big life change, you pick one goal, you break it down as small as you can, and you take small action on that one goal to help you build up that momentum. Katie, it's good to see you. Yes, I pushed it back an hour today because I had lunch with Sam's family. So yeah, we're here an hour later than normal, but still lots of us hanging out. I appreciate all of you being flexible with me. And if we have less people because we're an hour later and we end early, we end early. That's what it is. But I'm here to answer questions as long as you are here to ask them. So I think I'm all caught up on things. I am very hot. It is hot in here. What's funny is I almost left the AC on when I left for lunch, and I was like, no, you shouldn't leave the AC on when you're not going to be here. But I also thought I was going to be home in enough time to like cool this room down before I went live. I was wrong. So it's warm in here, and I'm warm from like almost running from the subway to be here all the time. So, and it's not hot outside. It's actually quite nice, but it's muggy and humid. Any tips for someone wanting to start YouTube? I have a channel focused on planning, but I'm wanting to change and focus on cooking maybe once a month as a hobby. First off, I love it. It's so exciting. The number one tip related to starting YouTube is just start. You're never going to feel ready. You're never going to feel like you have all the things you have. You're never going to not be afraid. You're never like all of those things. They're never going to go away. And so eventually you want to just start. And I just saw your next comment. Aside from just start, other thoughts. So funny. Okay, so I would say step one. So first off, I have I'm not a whole series. I have a handful of videos I've made on this topic before, and maybe you've watched them before, maybe you haven't. But like I say, with a lot of my videos, you likely watched them with something else in mind, right? Even if you've watched those videos before, you likely watched it with your planning YouTube channel in mind. Now, I would maybe recommend going back and watching some of those videos with your cooking YouTube channel in mind. So I will link that afterwards, all the videos I've done on YouTube. That said, I would say first things first is brainstorm. What are you thinking? Like, are you going to, is it going to be new recipes? Is it going to be only dinners? Is it going to be appetizers and dinners? Is it going to be dessert? Like what are you thinking in terms of cooking? And just start kind of brainstorming that, jotting down some ideas of what videos you could make. And then I would say schedule time to film your first one and just start and film your first one, edit it, and get it uploaded. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's likely not. Your first video is always, everybody's first video is a little bit rough. Just get that first one up there and then go from there. And if once a month is all you can manage right now as a hobby, do once a month. I love that. That's a great, there are lots of YouTube channels that's what they do as their consistency. So I think it's it's coming up with some ideas of what you want to do, and then yeah, just executing. Um, you can totally just start with your phone. You might have to get a stand if you're going to be cooking. That kind of sometimes requires some funky angles. Whereas if you're just filming a video like this, it's easy to just like prop your phone up on a book. Um, Otherwise, you can just use your phone and get going. I'm happy to answer any other specific questions too if you have them. Katie, you completed your novel on Monday. Congratulations for checking off that goal. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing your win with us. I love that. As a non-American, can you help me work out how much to tip the staff at my hotel? They're having to deliver a lot of stuff to your door. That is a really interesting question. I mean, I pretty much in anything I tip, I just err on the side of 20%. That is just it doesn't matter what type of establishment I'm at or whatever I'm getting delivered or paying for. If there is like a tip that is a part of it, I will give 20%. That is going to be the easiest way. I have never really had stuff like delivered like that at a hotel room, with the exception of like room service, which I would just do 20%. So that would probably be the safest route to go. But there might be some different, I would never be more than that. If anything, it would be less than that. And you could Google if you want to see if it would be a little bit less. Ray, do you ever plan to have clothing merch too? Yeah, that is on the list of things. It's on the list for this year. I would like to get to it this year. Clothing is a lot more complicated than the other stuff, like than mugs and cups and stickers and those kinds of things. Clothing is a lot more complicated. So it is on the list. I'm hoping to get to it. Oh, I love this. The concept is turning one meal into two by planning a leftover from the meat, and the first meal by making double meat. That is amazing. That's so fun. Okay, so the other thing about I just thought of related to your channel with cooking is that I don't know if you have any intention of doing like a test run first, right? Like if you want to do, but if it's something your family does all the time, then you just do it, right? If it's a recipe, you know. The other thing I have to say about cooking channels is I was following one, I was subscribed to one for a while, and then I finally unsubscribed because she wouldn't like put, I just feel like even if all it is typed up in the description of the video, that's fine. But she wasn't putting the recipe anywhere except like in the video. So like if I wanted to replicate her recipe, I had to write down the ingredients as I was watching her video. And then when it was time to cook it, I had to like go back and rewatch and like press play and pause. And it was so frustrating. So whether you have a website that you're going to post the recipe, or you have, you're just going to type it in the description box, that's totally fine too. I just feel like that for me was a frustration when I was watching a cooking YouTube channel that might be helpful. Linda, what made you decide to start your Patreon? If you had to do it over, would you start Patreon earlier than you did? So I mean, hindsight's always 2020. And so I would love to tell you like, yeah, I wish I had started it earlier, but truthfully, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to start it earlier for a number of reasons. Number one was the amount of time that it takes for me to execute on Patreon. And if we weren't in the middle of a global pandemic that was requiring me to stay home all the time, I would have not had the time or the capacity, or I would have thought I had it, but I really didn't have the time or capacity to execute properly on it. So I am glad that I waited until I did. It's really interesting to think about, like, if COVID hadn't happened, like what would I have done? I don't know. I don't know what I would have done, but I think that's kind of what made me decide to start. It was always an idea. I'd always brainstormed about it. And then I finally just had time. I had time that I felt like I could properly dedicate to it. And so I did. Here's a tip for our cooking YouTube channel. Figure out if you want to do overhead shots. I did one live cooking using StreamYard, which is the platform I use for my lives, and use my laptop for the view of my face and my phone for the overhead view. That's so smart. Wait a second. I never actually thought about doing something like that. Like, I could do that. I could put my phone in the overhead and have my phone join StreamYard and then have my computer be my face if we wanted to do something. I know Cindy had figured that out, where she's got like her face and her like planners or whatever out. I don't know what I would do. I'm not sure what I would do in that scenario, but that could be kind of fun to do something. Oh, River, I love this question. The topic is pride. Any fun things that you're going to do or have done, or any memories you want to share and what it means to you. So, unfortunately, this year, dance auditions are on the day of Pride, which you can rest assured that there are a lot of people in addition to me that are very frustrated by that and very upset. So this year likely is we will just be going out in Queens after auditions are over. I'm going to pack my all my pride gear in my bag with me for after dance, which is a huge bummer. That said, I typically it's the parade, which we haven't had in 2 years. So that's the other part of it that frustrates me all. And this is just a personal, selfish thing, I guess, is that we haven't had Pride for 2 years because of COVID. And this is my last New York City Pride. I was very excited. And we're gonna be at dance all day instead. So it won't be the same. But so some of my favorites, I have like 3 favorite Pride memories. The first one is my friend Sam Gray, who played the piano. He played the violin at our wedding. When we went to it was his first Pride Parade in New York. He was an intern, and just being able to experience that with him for the first time was incredible. Also, in that same parade, one of my great friends from high school was in the parade, and that was really fun. The first one I went to was Sam. That was a really great memory. And then I marched in it once. The dance company that I'm a part of, one summer, we had our own. We didn't have a float. We had like a banner, and we walked and had music and all the things. And it was a blast, and it did mean a lot. It was also the most exhausting. But I'm glad that we did it once. So yeah. And I mean, the last part of your question is about what it means to me. There's a lot of things that I don't necessarily share publicly about what it means to me, and I'm not necessarily going to go into that. But the most important outward facing thing that I can share is just the support, and the just like that I am here in support. Like I want you to be able to love who you love, and it doesn't I don't want you to have any other limitations on that. And I just feel like by showing up to events and supporting Pride, and also in the month of June, I also feel like there's so many more things get shared about like companies to support from, and I don't mean like buying rainbow things from like Apple. I mean like actual small businesses that are owned by members of the LGBTQ community that you can support. And that also I feel like comes to light and brings a lot of new shops that I found a new candle shop that I'd never heard of before until this month. So that's another thing I really love about it. Okay. I feel like I got very behind because I talked about that for a long time. Jess, I have 2 weeks off in the summer, but nothing is planned. I'm having major anxiety overwhelm. Any ideas on how to break this down to alleviate the stress around an actually fun thing? So I think the most important thing here, Jess, is what are those 2 weeks? What is important to you about those 2 weeks? Is it that you are completely resting and relaxing and rejuvenating yourself? Is it that you get some things done that you wanted a full interrupted day to get done? Is it a combination of both? And then I would say you schedule or plan the things that are important to you, and then let the rest be white space, and not feel like it has to be all one or the other, right? We talk about the spectrum a lot on my channel. So one spectrum is right that you have nothing planned and you completely rest, relax, rejuvenate. The other end of the spectrum is like, I am productive every day for 2 weeks. My guess is you don't actually want either of those things to be the scenario. Where in the middle do you want to fall? And let that guide you. Joanna, 20% of the hotel rate. No, 20% of like whatever you're getting delivered to the room. And we just like really circled back hard on that. Oh, that's a good question. Is your channel going to be under the same name? Yeah. Share with us what your new channel is going to be. Because that's a really great topic. Like that's a really great topic that I feel like a lot of people would benefit from. Not a question, but now that I'm out of school for the summer, I'm taking this hour to get rid of all of my paper planning items. I have fully committed to digital planning, and it has found my heart. That is amazing. I feel like sometimes we feel all this pressure to like do something because other people are doing it. And I feel like as much as I love stickers and I loved that time when I was using all of those stickers, I think it's okay that we change our minds. And I know, Kat, that you and I talked about this a little bit the other day in DMs, but like if there it takes up a lot of time. And if that's not how you want to be spending your time right now, then do what makes you happy. And I love that you're able to watch live in real time as well. And I love this idea. You're definitely not the first person to share something like this. To have, if there is something that you can do while you're sitting here chatting with us and you're free during this hour, again, normally it's at 1 p.m. Eastern, today was unique. Set that goal to do it. I know some of you have gone on walks. You use like me as this is my walk time, decluttering time, setting something up, cleaning something, like whatever you can do to be like, this hour every week, I'm going to do this thing. I love that. Magda, any tips for someone who wants to start working for themselves? I left my job due to creative differences and want to start tutoring full time. That's awesome. I don't know what part of the country that you're in. I have a good friend here who tutors full time. Not full time. That is a lie. She did tutor full time and now she has another job. But so I don't know where you live, but she might have like a person or two. But I think in terms of working for yourself, step one is what is going to bring in your income. I think that with tutoring full time, you kind of know what's going to bring in your income. And so with that kind of a job, it is getting yourself out there, right? So telling people, it can be sometimes so hard telling people what it is you do. Even today, Sam's aunt asked me, she was like, can you like tell me what your job is again? And it can be hard to like talk about like, this is what I do. So step one is going to be telling people, I tutor, I am a tutor. What are your focuses? What are the things that you're going to help them with? What people care, like the credentials of the tutor, I think are very important, but more importantly, they care what are you going to do for their student, whether it's them or their child or whatever. And so what are you going to help them get? Is it a certain grade? Is it passing a certain test? Is it a certain score? And don't be afraid to tell people about it. And then also don't be afraid to ask for referrals. If that is a business that is straight referral and people know other people, they just forget, right? So it does not hurt to, with a current client, be like, do you know anybody else who might be interested in my services? And they might, it's just in the back of their brain and you just have to bring that back out. So I think the other piece of it in terms of just working for yourself is what is that schedule going to look like for you, right? Like that can be really hard on days that I'm like, well, I don't have a call until noon. So maybe I'm just going to like kind of relax. And it's like, no, you own a business and you have other things you want to do. So scheduling in, what are those other things? Is it posting on social media? Is it reaching out to people that you have talked to in the past about working with them? Is it upgrading your website? Like whatever it is. I don't know if you have a website, but that is like, what are the other things you can be spending your time doing that help you get towards whatever your ultimate end goal is and what full-time means for you? Jesse, I know I asked this question, but I can't find it on your Facebook page. I don't remember this question, but is there any planning pad or planner with a Sunday start? That's a good question. I know the first thing that came into my mind is the HB90 planner that's digital does have a Sunday start option. And I think a lot of digital planners do come in like both the Monday or the Sunday starts. I cannot think off the top of my head of any like actual planners that have a Sunday start. But if you got an undated planner, you could date it however you want. Like like the Amplify planners that are undated, they don't have the days of the week, right? So I have a horizontal one right now. They don't have the days of the week. So you could really start this on Sunday if you wanted to. Like it doesn't have the dates or the days. I know some undated planners still have the days of the week. This one does not. So that could be an option. I think your best bet is probably going to be to look for undated planners rather than one that's actually a Sunday start, which I know can be frustrating. You're like, I don't want an undated planner, but like, I can't think of any. If anybody else has any tips for Jesse, here live in the chat or in the comments that you know a Sunday start, I'm going to ask them, Jesse, if you want to come back and check on this video in like a week and see if there's any comments of people who know of a Sunday start planner. Maybe we'll get some bites. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. All right. I think I'm all caught up with questions. So many great questions today. Anything else that you feel like you could use another brain on? Cover up with stickers. Yeah, that is also an option. That just can definitely add up in cost. Joanna, I feel this. I don't understand the planners where the month started on a Sunday and the weeks on a Monday. How does that not confuse everything? Yeah, that's really common here in the US. That we have our planner weeklies start on Monday or dailies, and the month starts on a Sunday. And it's like, okay, cool. Passion planners come in a Sunday or Monday start. You pick which one you want. Love that. I think actually, plum paper. Now that you say that like there's an option. Plum paper, I think, also has that option. MC Squares is coming out with a Sunday start weekly board. Oh, that's cool. That has me intrigued. This is a good tip as well for your new business. Local Facebook groups might be helpful. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Good tip. Anything else? Any other questions? Krista, I want to change the name, but I'm stuck on anything other than Cooking with Krista or Crystal Cooks. I think both of those are great names. I think it is helpful when your name, like your actual name, is in the name of the channel. I will say, once you put something like Cooks in your channel name, like now you are kind of locked in to it being about that. And if you did ever want to elaborate your channel to include other topics, you might get frustrated with that. So I do sometimes will recommend to people that they just make their channel or their Instagram just their name. And then you can talk about whatever the heck you want to talk about. You don't have to worry about it being within a certain category. Now, if you don't think that's ever going to happen, you think you're just going to talk about cooking, then totally do that. But that would be my only hesitation with that, is that if you did change your mind, you're kind of locked into cooking. Clearly speaking from experience. Oh, I like that. Crystal Lee's life. I love that. And like right now, what your life is and that you want to share is how you save time and money cooking in this fashion. And so that's what you share. I love that. I think that's a great idea. Yes. Love it. So many entrepreneurs in here. We've got YouTube channels, tutoring, book writing. So fun. So fun. All right. Anything else? If not, I am going to flip it over back to you and ask you my last question. If you have any other last minute questions, feel free to pop them up. But I am going to ask you my last minute question, which is, what is one thing that you will do this week to make progress on your goals? It doesn't have to be huge, but what is one small step that you are going to do to make progress on your goals? It might be refreshing your goals for the new quarter. If you're a member of the Patreon community, we have our live goal setting refresh this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. If you cannot make it live, the replay will be up shortly afterwards, and you can just catch the replay. But yeah, what is the one thing that you will do this week? You can also still join us, by the way. I meant to say that, and then I got distracted by the questions. If you are not a member of Patreon, you can still join at the $10 tier or higher and join us to refresh your goals this Saturday. I'm going to quickly answer this question. First thing you want to do in Chicago when you're moved: get unpacked, like just get settled. We go to Chicago so often and see our family so often that I'm not super stressed about doing anything kind of specific when we get there, besides just like spending more time with family. Actually, here's the answer. Sam always makes fun of me when I say this. I want like a standing family dinner with my family. Like, think Friday night dinners at the Gilmores with way less frustration, but like with my parents and my siblings. Okay, flying home, love that. Changing about 90% of your goals Totally. You've got a work conference this weekend, so you're going to be seeing lots of friends you haven't seen in person since 2019. Katie, I hope you have so much fun. That sounds amazing. Plan your first video recipes. Yes, I love it. I love it. Film your sticker haul and sticker organization video. Just canceled a language exam because life is too busy to prepare for it, so you push to September. I love that, Jess. Yeah, we've got to prioritize, and we can't do it all. We can't do it all right now. Setting up your budget to pay off your credit cards in 1 year. That is amazing. I hope you are so proud of that. I love it. And if you are catching the replay and you are still here, you're amazing. Let us know in the comments. What is the one thing you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? Even if we're like a week after this video, what is the one thing you're going to do to make progress on your goals? All right. Y'all are the best. Thanks again for being flexible with me today. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up before you head out, I would really appreciate that. And I will see you all next week.